I don't care about resumes. I say, hey, you show up to the working interview. If you can execute in the first week, you got the job. Period. Dude, when it comes down to how people perceive me, sometimes I give a fuck, and sometimes I'm like, you haven't been through enough to be judging me. You know, at the end of the day, this whole swearing thing when it comes to professionalism, I was actually there was a viewpoint from the lawyer of Trump, actually, the beautiful woman that's just absolutely crushing all of his cases. She swears a lot, apparently. And her mentors in the past told her, like, it's totally okay. The people that swear and are also productive are doing it for a reason, right? It's this kind of release of inner darkness, but it's also something that delivers a point kind of like nothing else will. It's sometimes very funny to swear, especially in professional settings. There's like a line that we walk when it comes to professionalism. It's sometimes very important to make sure that people really understand that we're serious, right? There's better ways to probably do it, but I use it because it just kind of it's also a humility thing because swearing is kind of available to like all of humanity, right? People that are going through tremendous amounts of social strife and people that are, totally fine. It's kind of like this connecting terminology, in a lot of black culture in particular. Like I've seen girls calling each other bitch, as a way to connect with one another. It's like a cultural thing. So to me, it's the swearing thing is if you're doing it all the time and you're doing it in a circumstance where you're around more professional people and that they don't appreciate it, then you're just kind of being an asshole. If you're doing it every now and then as a way to spice things up and to convey a point, I think it's reasonable because at the end of the day, like if people around you are grown enough to handle you swearing, and that's like an authentic version of you, you might want to think about changing the place you hang out. So in dental school in particular, this was something that I was always thinking about because I'm a doctor and I'm supposed to be legit and professional and I'm supposed to have all of this like information and knowledge, but I'm also a very humble guy that I'm like, dude, I've been out of school for a year and a half. What do I know more than this 60-year-old dude? Or I'm not this crazy researcher, so I don't know every little molecule that's in your composite, or this denture, right? So I'm not gonna put out this image of myself as like, oh, I'm this super professional guy and I know all my dentistry shit like the back of my hand, right? I'd rather have a more genuine interaction with someone, make them feel human, reduce their anxiety, and if the words that I use are important, then so be it. I hire people to execute. I don't care. I mean, as long as you don't show up with like, smelling like booze and weed and like, have stains in your shirt and don't know when you haven't washed your ass, like at the end of the day, like, you got to know. Again, this goes back to having people in your environment that tell you you smell like shit or that you should wear deodorant or that you should brush your teeth or, any of these other things. Like that's like that's like etiquette stuff. When it comes to people swearing, dude, my entire staff swears. Like my mom swears, right? Like who the fuck doesn't swear? At the end of the day, like it's something that can be perceived as like, oh, you're so cool. But to me, what I'm trying to do here with all of my social media content, anything that I do in my life, is I'm trying to be as authentic as possible. And if that means that I speak to people authentically through the use of words that might be a little abrasive to people, you can see on people's facial reactions whether or not they enjoy you swearing, right? You just need to like be aware of how their face looks, how their eyebrows are raising. You need to be aware of their body language as it changes if you swear, right? If it does change, you have the ability with the awareness of that change to change the way that you talk. Very important. Dude, it's more about your ability to communicate and get things done than it is about the words that you use, right? Like if you can get a point across efficiently and you can get to conclusions efficiently and not waste meeting time, if you have to swear or whatever to do that, like I appreciate that efficiency way more than someone that's all buttoned up and proper. Like for the most part, I don't even look at resumes anymore. I don't care about resumes. I say, hey, you show up to the working interview. If you can execute in the first week, you got the job. period. Doesn't matter how you speak, right? I need a job done. You can do that job. You're good. And frankly speaking, I think what your question is, you're worried about like kind of average jobs. Like you're putting yourself in a perspective of like I am not excellent, right? And so you're going to hold yourself with a standard of an average employer who is going to look at your resume and who's going to look at the way that you speak instead of their execution skills, because their execution skills are probably not exceptional, right? If you hold yourself at that standard, yeah, you're gonna want to perform like that. If, however, you hold yourself at the standard of like, dude, I'm gonna do an excellent job. I'm gonna completely outperform most people that are my age that are doing this type of work. I'm gonna learn as much as possible. I'm gonna go out and network still all the time and be useful to not only my boss but my family and my friends. You know, that's a dangerous human being, and it doesn't matter if that human being swears or not. It matters who that human being knows and whether or not they're getting what they deserve out of life. You know, it's just execution. I will never swear to get a response. That is not what I'm saying. Do not do that. Okay, don't go into the room and just to like test the water, you just throw out a fuck. You know, like no, 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 no. If it slips out of your mouth, watch what happens. Okay, like the swearing thing is something I'm never thinking about, as you guys might appreciate. You know, when I'm hanging out and talking, for the most part, I'm not swearing all the time. Like I got a point to convey. If the swearing slips out and it accentuates the point, I'll say it, but I will never use it as like, oh, what are the type of people that I'm dealing with? Most of the time, when I'm gauging what type of people I'm dealing with, I'm looking at their body language when they're not saying anything. I'm looking at how they walked in the room. I'm looking at how they're dressed. I'm looking at how they're paying attention. I'm looking at how often they go on their phone. You know, those types of things speak volumes of people's grace and people's ability to communicate way more than if they accidentally threw out the shit word or the shit word. If they threw out, like bitch, or fuck, or I don't know, anything, like people can perceive retarded as a bad word. It's like it depends on where you are in the world, man. Like grow up. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my perspective on swearing. At the end of the day, like, I mean, clean up your act. Like grammar is way more important than whether or not you swear. Okay, if you don't know what words need to go after what word, like the whole Ebonics thing, like a lot of black people for some reason don't realize that when they speak like their childhood friends and their parents taught them how to speak, or like that they speak in general, that people are gonna judge them, right? They are gonna fucking judge you because you need to know basic grammar principles of English. Now, here's the thing. On the other hand, some of the people that we respect most are some of these rappers, right? And they speak in those terms. And guess what? They can do that because they're not trying to get employed by the snooty ass person with a stick up their ass, right? They're building their own thing. So it's like, where do you want to be in life? If you want to be in a corporate structure, yeah, you should probably not swear that much. If you want to be your own boss and you want to do your own thing, you better have some crazy execution skills. You better have some crazy discipline, because that is a way harder way to approach life. Actualize your potential catalyst. This world needs you. Take care of yourself. It does not matter how many times you swear. It matters why you're swearing and whether or not you are executing and whether or not you have the balls to be yourself, or the ovaries, or whatever else you got in there. You take care now. Deuces.